If you ask most people what causes diabetes, they'd probably say it's about eating too much sugar, drinking too much soda, and having too many sweets after dinner. And they wouldn't be entirely wrong, but they'd be missing the real story. Because the thing that's actually pushing millions of Americans over 60 toward diabetes has almost nothing to do with what they're eating, and almost everything to do with what's happening inside their body that they can't see and have never been told about. Right now, nearly half of all Americans over 65 are walking around with blood sugar levels that are higher than normal, but not quite high enough to be called diabetes. The medical world calls it prediabetes, and the vast majority of people who have it don't even know. There's no symptom, no feeling, nothing that makes you think something is off. And every single year, a significant number of those people quietly cross the line into full type 2 diabetes without ever seeing it coming. But here's what makes this so frustrating, and honestly, what made me want to make this video. Up to 60% of people with prediabetes can return to completely normal blood sugar levels if they catch it early and make the right changes, which means more than half the people silently sliding toward diabetes right now could turn around and walk the other way. The problem is, almost nobody is telling them what those changes actually are in a way that makes sense. Now, if you already have type 2 diabetes, don't click away, because every single food in this video has research showing it can improve blood sugar control and insulin sensitivity, whether you're trying to prevent diabetes or manage it. These same foods can help your body handle blood sugar more effectively every single day. So today I'm going to walk you through 10 specific foods that research shows can genuinely interrupt the process that leads to diabetes, especially after 60. But before I get to any of them, I need to explain why your body at 62 or 68 or 74 is handling blood sugar completely differently than it did at 45. Because once you understand that, everything else falls into place. This video is not medical advice, and nothing here replaces the guidance of your own healthcare provider. What I'm going to do is put real research in front of you so you can make smarter choices and have better conversations with your medical team. Here's what nobody sat you down and explained. After 60, your body is going through 3 changes at the same time that are quietly conspiring to push your blood sugar higher and higher. The first one is muscle loss. Starting in your 30s and accelerating sharply after 60, you're losing muscle mass every single year. And muscle is the single biggest consumer of blood sugar in your entire body. Your muscles pull sugar out of your bloodstream and burn it for energy. Less muscle means less sugar gets cleared, so it lingers in your blood longer after every meal. The second change is that as muscle disappears, fat moves in to replace it, especially around your midsection. And that belly fat isn't just sitting there, it's actively producing inflammatory signals that make your cells resist insulin, the hormone whose only job is to move sugar from your blood into your cells. So you're losing the tissue that clears sugar and gaining the tissue that blocks the hormone trying to clear it. And the third change is the quietest one of all. The cells in your pancreas that produce insulin are aging right along with the rest of you. They're slower to respond, less efficient, and more prone to burning out. Your body is making less insulin at the exact moment it needs more. That's the real engine behind diabetes after 60. And the foods I'm about to walk you through don't just lower blood sugar in some vague general way. Each one interrupts a specific part of that machinery. Let me start with the one that has what might be the single most remarkable result I've come across in any of the research I've done for this channel, turmeric, specifically the active compound inside it. A 9-month clinical trial took a group of people with prediabetes and split them in half. One group received a turmeric-based supplement every day, the other received a placebo. At the end of 9 months, 16.4% of the placebo group had progressed to full type 2 diabetes. In the turmeric group, the number was 0, not one person. And it wasn't just that they avoided diabetes. The turmeric group showed measurable improvement in how well their insulin-producing pancreatic cells were actually functioning. Remember that third problem I just described, the aging pancreas? This is one of the only foods in the research that appears to directly protect and even improve those cells. A separate trial in elderly participants with prediabetes found that just 12 weeks of a low dose improved blood sugar markers significantly. You don't need a supplement to get this benefit. Turmeric in your cooking, added to soups, scrambled eggs, rice dishes, even stirred into warm milk, delivers the same compound. Now that addresses the pancreas, but what about the muscle problem, the fact that your body has less tissue available to pull sugar out of the blood? This is where legumes come in, and the data here is just as compelling. A major long-term study found that people who ate the most legumes, things like lentils, chickpeas, black beans, and kidney beans, had a 35% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Lentils specifically showed the strongest effect, with a 33% risk reduction on their own. The reason legumes are so powerful for blood sugar is that they contain a type of starch that your body barely digests. It passes through your stomach and small intestine almost untouched and arrives in your lower gut, where it feeds bacteria that actually improve how your body responds to insulin. On top of that, legumes have one of the lowest blood sugar responses of any food you can eat. A bowl of lentil soup barely moves the needle on your glucose compared to a bowl of white rice, which sends it through the roof. And legumes are one of the richest food sources of magnesium, a mineral directly tied to insulin sensitivity that most older Americans aren't getting enough of. Speaking of magnesium, that connects directly to the next food, leafy greens like spinach, kale, and collard greens. Now, if you watched my last video on liver health, you already know that leafy greens help reduce fat buildup in the liver through their natural nitrate content. But their role in diabetes prevention is a completely separate story. A meta-analysis found that eating just an extra serving and a half of leafy greens per day reduced diabetes risk by 14%, and the primary mechanism is magnesium. Your body needs magnesium to process insulin properly, and leafy greens deliver more of it per calorie than almost any other food. The American Diabetes Association actually labels dark leafy greens as their top-tier recommended food for blood sugar management. A handful of spinach in your morning eggs or a small side salad at dinner is doing more than most people realize. Now here's one that most people have in their spice cabinet and have probably never associated with blood sugar in any way: cinnamon. A clinical trial gave people with prediabetes cinnamon daily for 12 weeks and found it improved fasting blood sugar and glucose tolerance, with a 21% reduction in blood sugar during testing. Another study found that cinnamon reduced fasting blood sugar by 18 to 29% over just 40 days. A 2024 trial using continuous glucose monitors, the kind that measure your blood sugar every few minutes throughout the entire day, found that 1 to 2 teaspoons of cinnamon daily produced meaningful reductions in 24-hour glucose levels. What cinnamon appears to do is make your existing insulin work more efficiently, which is exactly what you need when your cells are becoming more resistant and your pancreas is producing less. Sprinkle it on oatmeal, stir it into your coffee, add it to yogurt. It's one of the simplest interventions in this entire list. And that mention of yogurt isn't accidental, because plain unsweetened yogurt has its own remarkable data. A meta-analysis of 14 studies covering more than 480,000 people found a 7% reduction in diabetes risk for every 50 grams of yogurt consumed daily. A separate study found that higher yogurt consumption was associated with a 28% reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. And here's what makes this interesting. This effect was specific to yogurt. Not milk, not cheese, not other dairy, just yogurt. The live bacterial cultures in yogurt appear to improve the gut environment in ways that enhance how your body handles insulin, which makes yogurt one of the only processed foods that actually protects against diabetes rather than contributing to it. The key is plain and unsweetened. The flavored varieties with added sugar essentially cancel out the benefit. Almonds work through yet another mechanism entirely. A clinical trial found that eating a small handful of almonds, about 15 of them, 30 minutes before each major meal, led to significant improvements in blood sugar, insulin function, and body weight over 12 weeks, and some pre-diabetic participants actually achieved complete remission. What almonds do is remarkably simple. They slow down the rate at which a meal enters your bloodstream. That means the blood sugar spike that normally follows eating gets flattened out, which gives your aging pancreas time to keep up instead of being overwhelmed. Think of it like the difference between pouring a glass of water slowly versus dumping the whole pitcher at once. Your pancreas can handle the sugar when it arrives gradually. It struggles when it arrives all at once. Whole grains, and I mean actual whole grains like barley, quinoa, brown rice, and steel-cut oats, work on a similar principle but at a larger scale. A pooled analysis found that people eating the most whole grains had a 29% lower rate of type 2 diabetes compared to those eating the least. Even just one serving a day was linked to a roughly 20% risk reduction. The physical structure of a whole grain slows digestion so dramatically that the blood sugar curve after eating it looks completely different from that of refined white bread or white rice. People who switched from refined grains to whole grains for just 8 weeks showed measurable improvements in blood sugar response. The grain itself acts like a time-release capsule, feeding sugar into your blood slowly and steadily instead of all at once. Berries showed up in our liver video for how they change the way liver genes handle fat. But their role in diabetes prevention is an entirely different story. The compounds that give blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries their deep color have been shown in randomized trials to improve insulin sensitivity in overweight adults. The mechanism works at the cellular level, improving how insulin receptors on your cells function so that when insulin arrives, the door actually opens and lets sugar in. That matters enormously after 60, when those receptors are becoming less responsive with every passing year. Extra virgin olive oil also appeared in the liver video, where we talked about how it helps the liver break down stored fat. For diabetes, the story is completely different and equally striking. One study found that adding extra virgin olive oil to a high-sugar meal reduced the post-meal blood sugar spike by roughly 50%. Half. The oil slows carbohydrate absorption and improves how cells respond to insulin, which means drizzling it on your food isn't just adding flavor, it's changing how your body processes the entire meal. The last food is flaxseed, and this one is here because of how practical and inexpensive it is. A study found that consuming ground flaxseed throughout the day was effective at lowering and maintaining blood glucose levels over a full 24 hours. Another found that just 10 grams of flaxseed powder per day, roughly 1 tablespoon, reduced fasting blood sugar by nearly 20% in people with type 2 diabetes over 4 weeks. You can grind it and sprinkle it on virtually anything: yogurt, oatmeal, salads, soups, and it costs almost nothing. Here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Your body after 60 is not the same body you had at 40. The muscle is disappearing, the belly fat is growing, the pancreas is slowing down. That's not your fault, that's biology. But the foods you put on your plate tomorrow morning can directly address every single one of those changes. The turmeric protects your pancreas. The legumes and whole grains control how fast sugar enters your blood. The cinnamon makes your remaining insulin work harder. The almonds flatten the spike before it happens. The yogurt and flaxseed reshape your gut in ways that improve insulin sensitivity from the inside out. None of this requires an overhaul. It requires a handful of almonds before lunch, a sprinkle of cinnamon in your morning coffee, a bowl of lentil soup instead of a sandwich on white bread. These are small, ordinary, unremarkable decisions that research says can be the difference between prediabetes reversing itself and prediabetes becoming the disease you'll manage for the rest of your life. If someone you love is over 60, share this with them right now. Not because it might help, because nearly half the people their age are one blood test away from a diagnosis they never expected, and most of them still have time to change the outcome.